My name's Sam, and I've been living in this quiet coastal town for as long as I can remember. It's the kind of place where the scent of salt water mingles with the aroma of old books, where the sound of waves crashing is a constant backdrop to everyday life. I own a local bookstore on the main street, a beloved spot for both the locals and the tourists who flock here for the picturesque scenery and the promise of tranquility. At 45, I often find myself reflecting on the life I've built here with my wife, Anna, and our 10-year-old son, Lucas. Anna and I have been married for 11 years, and for most of that time, I believe we had a strong, loving relationship. Lucas is the light of our lives, a curious and adventurous boy who spends his afternoons either at the beach or with me in the bookstore, lost in the pages of some new adventure. Running the bookstore is a dream come true for me. It's a place where stories come to life, where people find escape in the pages of a book. The shop is a cozy, inviting space filled with the scent of aged paper and polished wood. The walls are lined with shelves that reach up to the ceiling, each one brimming with novels, biographies, and everything in between. I've always loved the quiet charm of this town and the sense of community that comes with it. Despite the serenity of our surroundings, I've started to notice changes in my life that have left me feeling unsettled. Anna, who used to be so engaged with our family, has become increasingly distant. She recently joined a local nonprofit organization, something I initially thought was a great outlet for her energy and passion, but as she became more involved, she started spending less time at home and more time at various social gatherings and local events. It was as if she had found a new world that didn't include Lucas and me. I tried to support her, thinking this was just a phase or a new interest that would soon find a balance. But as the weeks turned into months, the distance between us grew. Anna seemed preoccupied, lost in her thoughts, and less interested in our usual family activities. Our once lively conversations dwindled into brief exchanges about mundane things, and I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The change in Anna was subtle at first. She'd come home late from meetings, offering vague explanations about extended discussions and new projects. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was something in the way she avoided eye contact and brushed off my questions that made me suspect there was more to it. Our son, Lucas, noticed the change too. He'd ask me why Mom wasn't joining us for our evening walks, or why she wasn't there to tuck him in at night. It broke my heart to see the confusion in his eyes, to hear him ask questions I didn't have answers to. I tried to make up for her absence, taking him to the beach more often, spending extra time with him in the bookstore. But it wasn't the same. Anna's behavior became more erratic. She was always on her phone, laughing at messages and quickly hiding the screen whenever I walked into the room. One evening, I overheard her on a hushed phone call with someone named Tom. The tone of familiarity and affection in her voice sent a chill down my spine. Tom was a colleague from her nonprofit organization, someone she mentioned in passing but never in detail. Hearing her talk to him like that, my mind raced with all the worst possibilities. Determined to uncover the truth, I started paying closer attention. I noticed how she'd dress up more often, spending extra time on her appearance before heading out. She'd come home late, smelling of unfamiliar cologne and offering flimsy excuses that barely held up. The final straw came one evening when she claimed to have a late meeting, but I followed her instead. She met Tom at a cozy, dimly lit restaurant, and from a distance, I saw them holding hands, sharing an intimate conversation. Heartbroken, I took photos as evidence, feeling a mix of rage and despair. Later that night, I confronted Anna about her whereabouts. She got defensive, accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. It was a side of her I had never seen before. A cold and distant stranger, wearing the face of the woman I loved. That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I knew things would never be the same. The trust that once formed the foundation of our marriage had been shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces and figure out what to do next. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was unraveling. Anna's defensiveness only fueled my suspicions. I began to notice more changes in her behavior. She was always on her phone, and every time it buzzed, she seemed both excited and nervous. Her laughter, once a sound that filled our home with warmth, now felt like a dagger to my heart. I decided I needed concrete proof. Something undeniable. My suspicions alone weren't enough. One evening, when Anna was in the shower, I took her phone. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through her messages. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. There, in a chat thread with Tom, were messages that confirmed my worst fears. They weren't just discussing work. They were sharing intimate details, planning meetups, and expressing feelings that should have been reserved for us. I felt a mix of rage and sorrow wash over me. How could she do this? How could she throw away everything we had built together? I printed out the messages, needing to confront her with undeniable proof. When Anna returned from her shower, I was waiting in the living room, the printout spread out on the coffee table. "What's this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You tell me," I replied, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Who is Tom, and why are you sending him these messages?" Her face went pale, and for a moment she looked like she might faint. But then, just as quickly, her expression hardened. "How dare you go through my phone? This is a violation of my privacy." "A violation of your privacy?" I echoed, my voice rising. "What about the violation of our marriage? How long has this been going on, Anna? How long have you been lying to me?" She collapsed onto the couch, her face in her hands. "I don't know what to say, Sam. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You made a choice, Anna. You chose to betray me, to betray Lucas. Why? Wasn't our family enough for you?" She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know, Sam. I was lonely. You were always so busy with the bookstore, with Lucas. I felt like I was invisible, like I didn't matter anymore." "That's not an excuse," I said, shaking my head. "You could have talked to me. We could have worked through this together, but instead, you chose to cheat." The confrontation was intense, emotions running high. Anna tried to explain, to apologize, but the damage was done. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship was shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. That night, I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built a life with, was a stranger to me now. And as I lay there, the weight of her betrayal settled over me like a suffocating blanket. The future that had once seemed so clear was now shrouded in uncertainty, and I didn't know if we could find our way back to each other. Determined to uncover the full extent of Anna's betrayal, I decided to follow her. I needed to see for myself what was really happening. The next time she mentioned a late meeting, I pretended to be supportive, even giving her a kiss on the cheek as she left. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched her drive away. I waited a few minutes before grabbing my keys and heading out. I kept a safe distance, not wanting her to see me. She drove to the edge of town, parking at a small, dimly lit restaurant. From my vantage point across the street, I could see her meet Tom, the man from her messages. They greeted each other with a hug that lasted too long to be innocent, their hands lingering on each other. I snapped a few photos, my stomach twisting into knots. I couldn't believe this was happening. Anna, my Anna, was holding hands with another man, looking at him with the same affection she used to reserve for me. They walked into the restaurant together, and I followed at a discreet distance. Inside, I chose a table far enough away to remain unnoticed but close enough to see and hear them. They sat in a cozy corner, their heads close together as they spoke in hushed tones. Anna laughed at something Tom said, a laugh that used to be my privilege to hear. The intimacy between them was undeniable, and it tore me apart. I ordered a drink I didn't touch, my eyes fixed on the two of them. Tom reached across the table, taking Anna's hand in his. They talked about things they shared, about dreams and plans. They spoke as if they were a couple planning a future together, completely disregarding the family Anna and I had built. After what felt like an eternity, they finished their meal and left the restaurant. I followed them outside, keeping to the shadows. They walked to a nearby park, sitting on a bench under a large oak tree. Tom leaned in, kissing Anna softly at first, then with growing passion. It was more than I could bear. I took more photos, each click of the camera feeling like a dagger to my heart. I needed this evidence, not just for any potential legal battles, but to confirm to myself that this nightmare was real. Watching them together, I felt a mixture of rage, heartbreak, and a profound sense of loss. When I couldn't watch anymore, I left, driving aimlessly for hours, trying to process what I'd seen. By the time I returned home, it was late. Anna was already there, her phone in hand, probably texting Tom. I confronted her immediately, laying the photos on the table. "Explain this!" I demanded, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Anna's face went pale again, but this time there was no anger in her eyes, only sadness. "Sam, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you like this." "But you did," I replied, my voice breaking. "You destroyed everything." She broke down in tears, confessing to the affair. She tried to explain how it started, how she felt neglected and lonely, but her words were just noise. All I could think about was the betrayal, the deceit, and the trust that had been shattered beyond repair. We argued late into the night, our voices rising and falling with the intensity of our emotions. Anna begged for forgiveness, promised it was over, but I couldn't see a way forward. The woman I had loved for so long was now a stranger, and our life together felt like a lie. I spent another night on the couch, staring at the ceiling and wondering how we had ended up here. The future seemed bleak and uncertain, and I didn't know if we could ever rebuild what had been broken. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, and I was left to navigate it alone, burdened by the weight of betrayal. The next morning the house felt eerily quiet. Lucas was still asleep, blissfully unaware of the turmoil that had engulfed our lives. I knew I had to face the situation head-on, for his sake as well as mine. After making breakfast and getting Lucas ready for school, I sat down with Anna. The tension between us was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words. "Anna," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "we need to talk about what happens next." She nodded, her eyes red and puffy from crying all night. "I know, I don't want to lose you, Sam. I love you. I love our family." "If you loved us," I said, struggling to keep my anger in check, "you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have betrayed me." She looked down, her hands trembling. "I know, and I'm sorry. I was lonely, Sam. I felt like I didn't matter anymore." "And that justifies an affair?" I shot back. "You should have talked to me, Anna. We could have worked through it together." "I tried," she said softly. "But every time I brought it up, you were too busy with the bookstore or Lucas." I felt invisible. Her words cut deep, but I couldn't ignore the truth in them. I'd been absorbed in my work and our son, perhaps neglecting her needs, but that didn't excuse her actions. "We need to make some decisions," I said, taking a deep breath. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Anna. I don't know if we can ever get back to what we had." She started crying again, and I felt a pang of guilt. Despite everything, I still cared about her, and seeing her in pain hurt me too. But I couldn't let that overshadow the betrayal and the broken trust. Later that day, after dropping Lucas off at school, I contacted a divorce attorney. It was one of the hardest calls I've ever made, but I needed to know my options. I needed to protect myself and Lucas, to ensure we would be okay, no matter what happened. Over the next few days, I focused on gathering more evidence. I went through Anna's phone and emails, documenting everything. It was painful, but necessary. I needed to be prepared for whatever lay ahead. One evening, while Anna was in the shower, I took her phone again. This time I found a series of intimate messages between her and Tom, detailing their emotional and physical relationship. My heart ached with each word I read, the betrayal sinking in deeper. I printed out the messages as evidence, feeling a mix of devastation and anger. When Anna returned home that evening, I was ready. I confronted her with the printouts, laying them on the table in front of her. She looked at them, then at me, her face a mask of sorrow and regret. "Sam, I don't know what to say," she stammered. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you like this." "But you did," I replied, my voice cold. "You hurt me. You hurt Lucas, and you destroyed our family. How do we move forward from this?" She broke down in tears, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. I wish I could take it all back." "Well, you can't," I said bluntly. "We need to figure out what happens next, for Lucas' sake, if nothing else." The confrontation was intense, emotions running high. Anna apologized repeatedly, but the damage was done. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship was shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. I decided to take some time away from home, staying with a friend for a few days to clear my head. It was a difficult decision, but I needed space to think, to process everything that had happened. During that time, I met with a divorce attorney and started planning my next steps. When I returned home, Anna and I sat down to have a serious conversation about our future. We agreed that, for the time being, we would focus on co-parenting Lucas and maintaining a sense of normalcy for him. But beyond that, the path was unclear. "I think we need counseling," Anna suggested, her voice trembling. "Maybe we can find a way to heal, to rebuild our trust." I sighed, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I don't know, Anna. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. But for Lucas' sake, I'm willing to try." And so we began the long, arduous journey of trying to rebuild our shattered relationship. It was a path fraught with pain and uncertainty. But for the sake of our son, we were determined to give it a chance. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We had a long road ahead of us, and it would take everything we had to navigate it. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of Anna's betrayal continued to hang over us like a dark cloud. We started attending counseling sessions together, but every meeting felt like peeling back layers of an old wound. The pain and anger were still raw, and it was hard to see a way forward. But for Lucas' sake, I pushed on, hoping that somehow we could find a way to heal. In the midst of all this, I also met with a divorce attorney regularly, planning my next steps carefully. I gathered all the evidence I had, the photos, the messages, the records of her late-night outings. I wanted to be prepared for any eventuality. My primary concern was Lucas. I wanted to ensure he would be okay, that he would have stability and love, even if our family was no longer whole. One evening, after Lucas was asleep, Anna and I sat down at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, the only sound the distant crash of waves outside. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear. "Sam," she began softly, "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I know things can never be the same, but I still love you. I want to find a way to make this work, for Lucas and for us." I took a deep breath, the pain still fresh. "Anna, I don't know if I can ever trust you again, but I'm willing to try for Lucas. He deserves a family, a stable home." Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to take my hand. "Thank you, Sam. Thank you for giving us a chance." Despite my resolve to try, the following weeks were incredibly challenging. Every interaction with Anna was tinged with the memory of her betrayal. Counseling sessions helped, but the process was slow and painful. We had to rebuild our relationship from the ground up, and there were days when it felt like an impossible task. One day, while sorting through some old photos, I came across a picture of our wedding day. We looked so happy, so full of hope and love. It was a stark contrast to the present, but it reminded me of why I'd fallen in love with Anna in the first place. That memory gave me a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. As the months passed, we made some progress. The intense anger and hurt began to dull, replaced by a cautious sense of rebuilding. We spent more time together as a family, focusing on creating positive memories for Lucas. We went on picnics, played games, and tried to find joy in the small moments. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. Despite our efforts, the underlying issue remained: the broken trust. I continued to attend individual counseling sessions to deal with my emotions. I needed to find a way to forgive Anna, not just for her, but for my own peace of mind. It was a long and painful journey, but gradually, I began to find some clarity. One evening, as I sat alone on the porch, Anna joined me. She sat down beside me, her presence tentative. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves. "Sam," she said quietly, "I want you to know how truly sorry I am. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm committed to making things right, whatever it takes." I looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "I appreciate that, Anna. I really do. But it's going to take time. We need to keep working at this, and it's not going to be easy." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." As the days turned into months, I realized that while the pain of betrayal would always be a part of our history, it didn't have to define our future. I started to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the partner who had been by my side for so many years. We continued to attend counseling, both together and individually. We set boundaries and worked on communication, learning to rebuild trust step by step. It was a slow process, but there were moments of genuine connection and understanding that gave me hope. In the meantime, I also took steps to protect myself and Lucas. I made sure our financial and legal matters were in order, ready for any eventuality. I consulted with my attorney regularly, ensuring I was prepared if things didn't work out. One evening, after a particularly good counseling session, Anna and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. Lucas was playing in the yard, his laughter filling the air. "Sam," Anna said, her voice soft, "I know we've been through so much, and I know it's still hard. But I believe in us. I believe we can find our way back to each other." I looked at her, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. "I want to believe that too, Anna. But we have to keep working at it. We can't go back to how things were, but maybe we can build something new." She reached out and took my hand, her touch warm and comforting. "I'm committed to this, Sam. To us, to our family." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were heading in the right direction. We had a long way to go, but we were taking the first steps toward healing and rebuilding our life together. And in that moment, surrounded by the familiar sounds of our coastal town and the laughter of our son, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. It wouldn't be easy, but maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. As the months turned into a year, the journey of healing and rebuilding continued. There were good days and bad days, moments of progress and setbacks. But through it all, Anna and I remained committed to the process. We were determined to find a way to make our relationship work, not just for Lucas, but for ourselves as well. We continued our counseling sessions, both together and individually. It was in these sessions that I began to truly understand the depths of my own pain and the reasons behind Anna's actions. It was a difficult process, but it was necessary for our healing. One evening, after a particularly emotional counseling session, Anna and I took a walk along the beach. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the water, and the sound of the waves was soothing. "Sam," Anna began, her voice filled with sincerity, "I know I've said this before, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am for everything. I know I hurt you deeply, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me." I stopped walking and looked at her, seeing the genuine remorse in her eyes. "Anna, I believe you, and I appreciate how hard you've been working to rebuild our trust. I can't promise that things will ever be the same, but I do believe we can find a new way forward together." She reached out and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you, Sam. That means more to me than you know." As we continued our walk, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was beginning to see a path forward. We had come a long way, and while there was still work to be done, I was starting to believe that we could build something new together. One of the most important steps in our journey was focusing on our family. We made a conscious effort to spend more quality time together, creating new memories and strengthening our bond. We went on family outings, played games, and enjoyed simple moments of joy and laughter. Lucas thrived in this environment, his bright smile a constant reminder of why we were working so hard to heal. Despite the progress we were making, I knew I had to take care of my own well-being as well. I continued to see my counselor, working through my own emotions and finding ways to cope with the pain. It was in these sessions that I learned the importance of self-care and forgiveness, not just for Anna, but for myself as well. One day, during a quiet moment at the bookstore, I found myself reflecting on the past year. It had been a tumultuous time, filled with heartbreak and pain, but also moments of hope and healing. I realized that I had grown stronger through this process, and I had learned valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of communication. I decided it was time to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Anna about our future. That evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, we sat down together in the living room. "Anna," I began, taking a deep breath, "I think it's time we talk about what comes next for us. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to be done." She nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I agree, Sam. I know it's been a difficult journey, but I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to make our relationship work." I appreciate that, I said, reaching out to take her hand. I think we need to continue our counseling, keep working on our communication, and focus on building trust. But I also think we need to give ourselves permission to let go of the past and look forward to the future. Anna's eyes filled with tears, and she squeezed my hand tightly. I want that too, Sam. I want to build a future with you and Lucas, one where we can be happy and whole again. As we sat there, holding hands and talking about our hopes and dreams, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about our future. In the weeks that followed, we continued to make progress. We focused on open and honest communication, making sure to address any issues or concerns as they arose. We spent more time together as a family, creating new traditions and building a stronger bond. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Anna turned to me with a smile. Sam, I just want you to know how grateful I am for you. You've given me a second chance, and I promise I won't take it for granted. I smiled back at her, feeling a warmth in my heart. And I'm grateful for you, Anna. We've been through a lot, but I believe we can build something beautiful together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of closure. The past would always be a part of our story, but it didn't have to define our future. We had the opportunity to create a new chapter, one filled with love, trust, and happiness. Looking back on the journey we had taken, I realized that while it had been incredibly difficult, it had also been transformative. We had faced our darkest moments and come out stronger on the other side. And as I looked into Anna's eyes, I knew that we were ready to move forward, together. In the end, it wasn't just about overcoming betrayal. It was about rediscovering each other, rebuilding our relationship, and creating a future filled with hope and love. We had a long road ahead of us, but I was confident that we could navigate it, hand in hand, one step at a time.